Good evening, everybody. My name is Nate.
Good evening.
I'm the Vice Chair for Stanislaus County. It is my responsibility to introduce our guest speaker tonight. Some of you may have heard of him. He's somewhat known in the Capitol. His name is especially known whispered in the halls, behind closed doors, in that big building up there north of us. His career started, he always says, as a janitor in a school where he saw the need for good people to work with California's youth. He went to college to earn a teaching degree to become an educator specializing in biology. He taught for many years, even becoming superintendent. He knows firsthand the deficits of California's education system. He has witnessed the challenges facing today's youth. In 2017, he and a group of people in Yuba started meeting to see what could be done to correct the wayward path of California and bring her back into alignment with the U.S. Constitution. Through this, we have the birth of New California State, declaring independence from the pusillanimous craven dictators that run our state. He is also the creator and host of Agenda 21 radio show streamed live Monday through Friday and ranked in the top 50 of Internet Power rankings alongside others like Michael Savage and Michael Ben. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming New California State President Paul Preston.
Do this. Yeah. Okay, are we ready? Well, Nate, thank you very much for that. That was really nice. And it's nice to be here to meet everybody. It's been a long time since we've been here. Over a year. Over a year, and of course you had this here. Right? And you all survived, right? All right, just want to make sure this was here and you all survived. And guess what? You flourished. Because you brought some more people with you. And that's what we always want to try to do, is bring more people with us. Okay, a lot of things are moving, and I think you're veterans here of the American experience, and you know that as we move, we're moving in the wrong direction in some ways. We've been moving in the wrong direction for about 170 years because people have been helping us move that way. Okay, I want you to understand that what we're experiencing right now is the culmination of a worldwide effort for many, many years. At least it goes back all the way to 1776. Because people did not want to have the Declaration of Independence on the planet. And I try and get everybody to understand that the events that are happening to us, which are quite serious, and we are on the verge of being destroyed as a nation. We absolutely are. And it is not because necessarily of our own neglect, but because we have been systematically attacked either by warfare or other means. Covet means. How many have heard that term before? John Kennedy said, there are people out there that want to destroy this country by covet means. You guys remember that speech? I can remember that speech as a kid when he made that. I had no idea what it meant. But there are secret societies, religions, that want to destroy this country because of who we are and what we represent. And that has always been the case with this country. You see, the uniqueness of who we are as a country by 1776 was being clearly demonstrated. Now, I'll give you some examples of how that was being demonstrated. One, the Declaration of Independence. There's no other document on the planet that's so unique as the Declaration of Independence except for the Bible.
That's right.
No one has ever heard of the word independence or to be independent until 1661. You guys realize that? The world did not even know what that meant, to be independent. We're all independent people in here. Do you know what it's like to be not independent? Been in jail? Good example of not being independent, right? That's what you do. I've only been from other foreign countries and seen communism, totalitarianism firsthand. Which country?
Well, Spain when
When Franco?
Franco was in charge.
Pretty different place than this place, right?
Yeah.
But where are we going?
What? So where
Where are we going right now?
Well, depends on whether we get Trump back.
Well, and praise God we get it back. But it just so happens our attorney, Robert Thomas, who's our attorney for New California State, was trained at the University of Salamanca as an attorney. That's in Spain. That's where some of the best attorneys on the planet come from. And he also lived in Spain, because his dad was in the military at the time. He lived in Spain, and he was there when Franco was there. He remembered that as a kid. But he also, before he went to Spain, his dad was stationed in Gitmo during the time in which Fidel Castro was taking over Cuba. How many knew that before? Well, you didn't know Robert Thomas, right? But listen, as a kid growing up, he tells this story. As a kid growing up, the big day when they broadcast TV, and it was always from Cuba, and it would come out on the base where they lived, that base housing. The big event of the day was to see the executions live on TV. You turn the channel, and all of a sudden there'd be people lined up, and they go, "Un fuego!" and they'd all drop. That's what a 7, 8-year-old kid was seeing for himself in Cuba. And don't think these things can't come here. How many have heard of the town Goshen? What just happened in Goshen? Anybody know? Execution in the street. In fact, there's a cartel hit, Sinaloa cartels. I want to tell you the names of the people. I'll be more than happy to do that. They're not in jail. Cartels are around us all over the place now. We have a fifth column in the United States. That's what we have now. So these people have been serious for a long time. And then all of a sudden, after the Declaration of Independence, we pull out this thing called the Constitution, which assures our God-given rights and tells us what kind of government we're going to have. That was just a few years later. And then another God-given right document was, of course, the what? The Bill of Rights. To explain what rights we have. I want to do this lesson for you. I'm going to put my teacher mode back on. I am the teacher. I have a chalkboard. I'll put your name up here. Okay. There are 5 elements in the First Amendment. 5 rights guaranteed to you. And the first element is, the first right is what? Freedom of what?
Religion.
Oh, you guys are so good. Did Liz do this with you guys? I just want to know if there's got any cheese going. The second one is what? Freedom of speech. And the third one is?
Freedom of the press.
How many have gotten your press passes from New California yet? 1? 1? All you need to do is contact Liz, give her a pic, isn't that right? You have it with you? You almost brought it. That's it. You didn't. I'm just kidding. If you want a press pass, because listen, freedom of the press means you have freedom of the press.
Right.
That means you can be a reporter for us. You can be a reporter for anything you want to set up as a news agency. You can get yourself a pass, and if you see a news gaggle with all these guys with big giant cameras, you can walk right up there with your little pass and say, "I am the media. I have freedom of press." And you know what? They won't say anything to you. They'll say, "Well, come on along." Everybody is guaranteed that freedom of the press. Do you realize what kind of a press corps we have in this room?
Yes, I do.
Do you understand the power behind that? You see why the big struggle for the media is going on right now. And the answer to the whole thing is that if every American exercised their freedom of the press, guess what? It would be over in a week. It would be over in a week. Because the mainstream media right now, with just the core that we have right now with the alternative media like myself, they are in the backstep mode. They are backing up, they're crumbling. Why? Because the truth is winning out. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Okay, now the fourth element is what? Freedom of what? Freedom to assemble.
Assemble peaceably.
That's right. That's what we're still being peaceable right now. Did you have don't do anything happy? Nothing. Okay. Freedom to assemble, and the fifth one is what?
Redress of
Redress of grievances.
Redress of grievance.
And boy, do I have a grievance for you right here.
Absolutely.
This is the one that came out today. It's the fourth in a series of default notices about the state of California. It's the fourth one. I'll read a little bit to you. It's copied after the 190 grievances that we read after we declared independence from California on January 15, 2018. We went on for 190 weeks and read grievances about the state of California and why we need to split apart and become our own state. We fulfilled the constitutional obligation that was found in the Declaration of Independence of 1776, which was a series of grievances telling the world about the evils of the King George regime, the monarchy. You see, the world at that point in time was literally divided up into totalitarians and peasants. Those with wealth, those without wealth. That was really the world. So the idea of coming along with some group of people saying, oh, let's be independent. You know, do you realize King George didn't even understand what that word meant? He didn't have no idea what the word independence meant. And it's kind of interesting. I read stories that he actually, it took him about 3 months to figure it out. It was like, oh my Lord, I can't let this happen. Because he didn't understand the definition of independent. Remember I said it was a new word? And the founding fathers had figured out. Words have meaning. And that's why the Constitution is so strong. The Constitution, if you take literally go get the Merriam-Webster 1828 Constitution, or excuse me, the dictionary. I just got my replacement one because my other one I lent to my friend, and I haven't seen my friend in about 6 years. So I had to get another one. But that's the one dictionary that the founding fathers relied upon. Words have meaning. And so this word independent, they knew was a very, very strong word. And as a strong word, it would have impact, it would have meaning. And of course, as people started to find out what that word meant, guess who they started to look up? The founding fathers. And a lot of these people on the other side weren't happy that people were being granted independence and freedom, which is another misunderstood word, freedom from the king. And also then they come along with the Constitution and self-determination. It's not just the freedom, it's not just the independence, it's the liberty now. Wait a minute. Do you think that was making a lot of people angry in their empires? When you had the colonizers, when you had Spain, when you had the Vatican, when you had Portugal, when you had Germany, when you had Great Britain, the Netherlands, Russia, everybody's a colonizer. And where's the prime property? The New World. They all wanted a piece of the action of the New World, and boy, were they getting it. Spain and the Pope, boy, and Portugal, were they just hammering people for gold in the New World. And they were getting it, weren't they? You heard about these gold galleons, right? When hundreds of tons of gold were placed upon these wooden ships, and they knew nothing about hurricane season. And they'd be lost. There's still dozens, hundreds of these things sunk at the bottom of the sea with hundreds, billions of dollars worth of gold. All that plunder ended up in Europe. And guess what? One piece of paper, a couple pieces of paper with some grievances on it, destroyed that entire relationship. Now that's not a divorce. That's a disaster divorce. They just didn't want that to happen. Who are these colonists think they are? Well, they're Americans. They're Americans, and they knew what they had to do. They knew what they had to do. They understood tyranny. They understood a tyrant. They understood that the reason they came to the New World was to have religious freedom. That's why it's number 1 in the Bill of Rights. Religious freedom. They understood the persecution they were going through in Europe because of their religious beliefs. They come to the New World, they settle in, and that's the first priority is religion. And it stays that way until it's actually ensconced in the Bill of Rights that they have guarantees of freedom of religion, First Amendment. Everything else springs from that. Now, by the way, it's Christian beliefs. The founding fathers who wrote this document, there were 56 of them, 54 were Protestant Presbyterians. One was a Catholic and one was a Jew. Now, that was the demographics. That was the demographics of the New World. We understand. I mean, it's not that we had different ethnic groups like we have today. That was the demographics of the New World. Just like this community has a demographic. Every other community has it. Everything's different. But there's one thing we all have in common, regardless of the skin color, and that's the beauty of the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. We all have the same God-given rights. God loves us even though we don't know Him. Those rights are all guaranteed to all of us. And there's only one way we can get rid of those rights. Surrender them. That's the only way you get rid of the rights, is surrender them. You know, I learned a big lesson about that particular thing, about being an American. I was at a high school in West Sacramento, and loved the school, loved the kids. A great mix of humanity, a lot of kids that were illegal foreign nationals. And of course, in schools, you don't discriminate against that. If you come from another country, you take them and educate them. That's just the way it should be. And by the way, we assimilated them. Especially, we had a language arts program. We had a fantastic adult education program. It was a hallmark. We have literally thousands of people come through and learn English language skills and learn how to assimilate and ultimately become citizens. It's a great citizenship program. But I learned a big lesson about the colleges and universities. You know, we always want our kids to go off to the colleges and universities, the best schools and all that stuff, right? So we were doing the same thing. We were striving with our teachers, with everybody. Really, these kids are going to go off to Berkeley, they're going to go to Davis, they're going to go here, they're going to go there, UCLA. And then finally, about 1993, we noticed a trend that our kids weren't getting in. And the kids it started out with the white kids, white boys. White young men, 4.0 GPA, all the qualities, everything. And they could not get into the UC system. And I said, well, no big deal, it's just whatever the trend is for this time. But then that persisted and went to the white girls. The next couple of years, they just weren't getting in. And so then we started asking questions, why is this happening? You know, where were we missing the curriculum? We weren't questioning about racial attitudes or anything like that. And then we noticed for a 2-year period, we could not get any students that were black in the schools, universities. And so now I'm just kind of scratching my head. By the way, our head counselor, black lady, she came to me and said, don't you think this is a problem? And I said, it started to be that way. And then guess what? The next year, we could not get a Latino in. So finally, about 1997, she comes to me and says, Paul, I figured out what it is. Why we can't get our kids in the university system. Well, let me have it. So we sat down in a staff meeting of this number of people. She said, the reason why we can't get them in is because every single one is an American citizen. Every single one is an American citizen. And of course, then we started to develop, hey, we know about the tuition and so on, like things like that, out-of-state tuition, and how much money the UC systems were getting. They were purposely discriminating against Americans. Didn't matter what color you were, what background you were, nothing. If you were United States citizens first, especially Californians, you were not allowed to participate. And that was a problem. We did not like that. And that's the way the system has remained until around, still remains that way. The preference is the foreign students with large amounts of money. That's the common denominator. And usually they are Chinese. That is a problem. That's a problem for, well, our way of thinking as the United States, right? We believe in equality. We don't believe that our schools should be there to discriminate. And then on top of that, what is the curriculum that the schools are delivering? That's another thing. The schools in California gave up their 10th Amendment right to educate their children in 2010. How many knew that? Okay, all this stuff that you hear in the curriculums, all the stuff that's happening, that's Common Core, whatever, it was given up in January of 2010 by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who signed a bill, a Senate bill, surrendering California's 10th Amendment constitutional right to educate children and surrendering it to the federal government. Does that make sense? And so I was working in my studio the night before he signed it, and I was in a conference call. They called me up from the Department of Education. They said, Paul, we need to get your opinion on something. I said, what's that? Well, Schwarzenegger's going to sign this bill, and we think there's a problem with it. I named the bill off. It was SX32 or something like some weird number. And she goes, that's it. And I said, well, what do the other ladies think? Well, they're really concerned. They're worried that this thing, they're worried about the Constitution. I said, you're worried about the Constitution? I said, I've been out for weeks. I was still in the school system. My superintendent was telling me, don't talk that stuff anymore. No, I'm going to talk about it because he's ruining education. What this means is this: when he signed that bill, and they asked me the questions, and I said, ladies, you guys were campaigning for him to sign this because it meant money. You guys are going to get money in the education system. It's all about the money, but what about the constitutional rights of the people? I said, I've been telling you that. Well, Paul, are we really going to lose our rights to, and are the local school boards not going to be in charge of the schools? I said, that's correct. School boards will not matter. County boards of education will not matter. I said, give it 5, 10, 15 years, and you'll be completely washed over. Completely. You won't have to make any determinations at all. And doesn't that happen now? Here it is 13 years later, and it's happened. And what are you getting in your schools? The COVID virus, wokeness, what else? CRT, well, a lot of perversion. Might as well invite that in, right? The drag queens and all that stuff.
32 genders.
32 genders? Don't you call me he.
No correct. No parent correct advice, just give them a vaccine or whatever, and the parents don't have nothing to say about it.
Confidential medical services.
Yeah, confidential medical services. I do have to tell you, I laid the law down with my counselors. I said, you will never advise a girl to get an abortion. And you know what? They thanked me for that. They thanked me for that. It was a burden on them because they knew they had an obligation. I said, you just turn that switch off. You just turn that switch off. You just don't recommend it. And then you go to the parents. You let the parents help out. But I don't want to have that happen. And it didn't. That's all you need to do is encourage people to do the right thing, and they will. Because everybody in education, in my opinion, the vast majority of educators are conservative people. I really believe that. I have met we went to a conference, and Arnie Duncan was there at the conference. You know who Arnie Duncan is? He was Barack Obama's education secretary. And we were kind of excited that he was there because we had some real questions about Common Core at the time. And this is in Washington, D.C., so we sat around a big, huge table. That table was just monsters, had about 30 people at one round table. And he came in, he started talking, and we all looked around and said to ourselves, there's something wrong with what he's saying because it doesn't make any sense. It was, what was it, gibberish or something? It just didn't make any kind of educational sense. And so we're kind of like looking around at each other. I mean, I don't know these people, some from South Carolina, some from Florida, some from North Dakota, and we're just from all around the nation. And finally he gets up and leaves, thank you very much, and does the hand wave and his picture being taken. And we're all just kind of like, so, yeah. And so I said to everybody, I said, I just kind of had to break the ice. I said, does anybody understand what he said? And their heads go like this. I mean, everybody. I mean, listen, that's who's in charge of your public education system then. And he didn't know. He truly didn't know. I saw him in interviews and other things after that. And from an educator standpoint, he had no concept of what he was doing at all. So that's the kind of leadership you're getting. And now, how about these Buttigieg? That's right. It's the same sort of thing. You fill up those slots with people that are not qualified, and what do you get? You get a tyranny. You get a mini tyranny in administration is what you get, all across the board. Well, that's been part of the design, but getting back to the education factor, and I'm emphasizing this because I'm seeing this on my radio show, people are still not getting that the federal government has charge of your schools. And you can see how evil this becomes. When you have 5 or 6 people in Washington, D.C. that are making the decisions for you here in Stanislaus. That's not right. And that's not the way the Founding Fathers wanted it to be. The Founding Fathers wanted representation. They wanted republicanism. They wanted your voices to be heard, people. They wanted your voices to be heard. They wanted to see gatherings like this. That's why they put them in the First Amendment. They wanted you to go to church, to communicate, to sing, to chant, to spit on one another if you have to. These super spreaders. And do it in church. That's what they wanted. And they wanted you to be able to grieve your leaders. So this grievance right here is one of the latest ones that just came out today. I think this is the last one. But this is the 4th constitutional default notification. Now, I'll explain more of this later. But this is some of the language that we use in this. So if you haven't read a constitution, and I did not bring my pocket constitution with me, I should have done that. Get a pocket constitution and read it. It's only 7 articles, it's not very long, and study it. Yeah. These are wonderful documents right here. Study it, learn it. And by the way, keep a Bible next to you and get that Merriam-Webster's dictionary next to you. Because what a treat you're going to have. You're going to rediscover the Lord all over again. And you're going to see what these documents really truly are. They are the best gift to humanity since the Bible. And once you get a hold of this, you'll never let go. You'll be more impassioned about liberty and freedom for our country and more appreciative of the God-given rights you have. And you'll realize when you look at a Newsom, what a punk. He's not my governor. And we should do something about it. That's the point. If you don't like what the guy is doing, do something about it. But you do it constitutionally. You don't go out and get in a revolution. You don't go out and get in a shooting fight. You don't go out and do all the things that people think that they classify all of us as, right? Isn't that correct? That's just not the way the Founding Fathers work. They always have put in a peaceful way to make changes in government. They always have that. They even cautioned in the Declaration of Independence. And in the Declaration of Independence, I know this has one in it. That's the oath of office. That's something people don't know about. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right, capitalized, of the people, capitalized, to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall most seem likely to affect their safety and happiness. This line is quintessential. And you'll think about this line because of the first word. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that government long established should not be changed for light or transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. In other words, we're more willing to sit back and suffer because we don't want to change something for light or transient reasons. We'll just take the suffrage. How's that working out for your 401ks right now? Just take the financial suffrage. How's that working out?
Too well.
Not too well. How's that working out with gangs coming on board? Not too well. And it says here, governments should not be changed for light or transient reasons. Guess what? We're not in light and transient reasons anymore. Toto, we're home. Okay? They caution against this. They caution against revolution. They don't want revolution, but they tell you here, you can't have revolution. In fact, it's your duty to do that. It is our duty to do that, if need be. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the passion or the patient suffering of the colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. That's called a call to arms. The right and the duty, when they mean the right, they mean, and again, words have meaning, they mean a responsibility. You have a right, you have a responsibility. But also duty is that you have a duty to kill the prince. That's how it's interpreted. Hence the Second Amendment. But prudence indeed. Remember that. Prudence indeed. Yeah.
For the support of this declaration of the firm reliance of divine providence. Divine providence.
And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually agree to pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. Now, I sign for you the New California State Declaration of Independence. I will die for you to preserve your liberty and your freedom for your children and your grandchildren. My ink is on that paper. We're at a point where ink matters. My question to you is, what are you going to do now? How many would do this?
Well, I've been collecting horns because according to the majority, the only reason for the Second Amendment is to kill deer, so I'm going to strap horns on them all.
There you go. That sounds like a divine providence to me. There are times like this that only come around once every thousands of years. And I think that's the one thing you need to find out about this. This is such a unique time in history, in human history. We've never had such a confluence of events, ever. When we're talking about technology, when we're talking about energy, when we're talking about media, when we're talking about all those things, we've never had such events coming forward. What do you talk about?
No, I just promised everyone that we could have a time of Q&A.
Okay, tell me how we do it.
Could we start that so that we can continue Q&A?
Sure. Do we have to get out of date?
We have till 8:30.
Oh, okay. Well, let me cover a couple things here about elections. I want to try and do that first. Let me tell you about New California and some things that will alleviate some of your stresses too. When we signed, we have what's called constitutional standing, and we're the only We the People movement in the nation today that has that. Okay, it's a pretty special place to be. It's an honor to be here with that type of standing, and we cherish the standing in New California. That's why we're in the Congress. That's why we're starting to liaison with members of Congress right now, Republican and Democrats. You wouldn't believe who we talk to. You would not believe who we talk to. The most radical on the left and the most radical on the right. And they're going, yes, in California. You believe that? Listen, and I can't tell you more, but I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. I fell out of the chair. But this is the most exciting stuff happening. People are recognizing this, not just New California, they're recognizing the times, and something has to change. So New California started this quest back in 2017. We declared independence 2018, did our 190 grievances. We've set up a government. We have a strong legislative group, very, very strong now, very, very healthy. We've had 10 constitutional conventions. We built a constitution. Not only that, but we've had well over 100 resolutions and 2 ordinances, which are law. We've done these things so far. We've had 64 field hearings out in the field. We wanted to find out about the elections. We wanted to find out about every element, every concern that people had, including our schools, including child sex trafficking, including an invasion at our borders. We did all these things. You know how many times the California legislature in 5 years has done that? We did this in 2. They have done 0 hearings out in the field in 5 years. 0. That's an insult. When we were all suffering with the pains and everything that went along with COVID, masking up, getting shots, watching our friends die. I have a good friend. I was on the phone with a very good friend of ours, a New Californian, who may die because of the COVID. That's my drive here. Yeah. It's a vaccine. Not the COVID thing, it's a vaccine. Took the vaccine 2 years ago, now it's gone. So, listen, these people have lost their constitutional authority to govern. It's called a default. And that's why we wrote these defaults and everything else leading up to this. We as Californians have said the government no longer exists. The government literally has seceded from us. And now we are standing up as a We the People movement, which, by the way, in the Constitution, what are the first 3 words? We the People. Welcome, We the People, to our movement. You are members of the We the People movement. And you should be strengthened by that because you are the boss of these people in Sacramento. And they just got fired because New California declared them in default. And this is the 4th and final default right here. They are out. We have set up a restored government. We took our resolutions from New California State and approved them with the restored government. We are not negotiating with the state assembly or senate because we feel it's a monoculture or monoparty system. The 3 government branches of government are gone. They don't exist. You still have a pusillanimous craven dictator, Gavin Newsom. They'll always be there. They are not functioning as a government. And if they're functioning as a government, it's a communist, national socialist variety of government. It's antithetical for us to go to them and say, oh, we want to be a state. You know, by the way, the first thing in becoming a state is to guarantee everybody a Republican form of government, keep them free from invasion, and keep them free from domestic violence. That's Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. Are you free from domestic violence here?
No.
Are you free from invasion?
No.
And do you think you have a representative government? No. None of that exists. So therefore, they're in default. That's the point. And finally, the last default is dereliction of duty by the government. That's what this one is about. It's up on the website. You can see it. He's going to get a copy of this electronically tomorrow. This will be the fourth and the last one of this variety. There's going to be another document. We're not going to talk about that right now. But that's what this is all about right here. I want to read to you these parts so you understand how, and this will go quick. On the back of every one of our grievances, and this looks a little bit like it, we changed this around because we started out 190 ago. This is what we say about the state of California. Acts of insurrection. The government of California, the current socialist governor, dictator, and monoparty system, along with local officials, are following a coordinated design with the intent to actively engage in acts of insurrection against the United States Constitution. When you are no longer using the Constitution in and of itself, you are having an act against the Constitution. That constitutes insurrection. That's only one thing they've done. There's hundreds, thousands of things. Acts of secession. The government of California, in conjunction with the Socialist State Executive instituted, wherever the current socialist governor dictator has usurped power, has actively engaged in acts of insurrection and has created a reign of terror on United States citizens living in California with the intent to secede from the United States of America and thus destroy the very union of states which secures our liberty and freedom. Abdication of authority. Betrayal by the city of Pusillanimous socialist governor dictator of California, the monoparty legislature, and local elected officials is evidence of abdication of the responsibilities of authority and sovereignty over the citizens of the United States living in California state. This statement has been on every single one, just about, in that, pretty much in that form. They've had enough notification about what we're doing and why we're there. That's why we're now in Congress. We're not going to mess with them. They're totalitarians. The West Virginians did the same thing when Virginia seceded from West Virginia and left them high and dry. We're following that pattern. So, anyway, questions, I guess.
Hey, Melinda?
Yeah.
Melinda, grab the mic and then we'll go up and on.
Come on, Nathan, buddy.
What I'd like to do is offer to our guests first, if you would, the questions. And so, sir, back there.
Oh, he needs the mic. You need to walk the right mic.
Good evening, everybody. I'm pretty new to this movement, sir.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to really understand is what process is involved for New California to finally be validated and recognized as a new state. So what are the steps that we need to go through, and who, if any, has to put a stamp that this is the new state?
Very good question. This is about, well, that's that. Yeah. This is how it works, is that there is a process, and you're going to get the lesson of the process because not a lot of people understand the process of statehood, okay? And the process of statehood is found in the Constitution under Article 4, Sections 2 and 3. And under Article 4, Section 3, which is one of the sections, the other one deals with territories. You can become a state by a territory, by the Article 4, Section 3 process, or just being brought in by a bill, which is the way California was. There's only been one state done that way, California. And that's because of the 1848 gold rush, and they thought it would really be a smart idea to bring California in with all that gold. And the reason is, before California was even a state, the United States had amassed, I don't know how many metric tons of gold from the 1848 gold fields. In the United States by 1850, because of California gold, was the richest nation on the planet. That was the end of the British Empire. These 49ers who came along. Okay, so that was a big step. But in our situation, it was the Californians who decided, based in 1849, to write the Constitution, and they went forward. Similar to what we're doing. I'm not getting into the details. Some of it's top secret, actually. And they went to Congress and said we need to be a state, and they agreed. And the interesting thing about the state was that the South wanted California to be a slave state. That was the big argument. And everybody said, no, that wouldn't happen. But then they said that because the South had so much wealth, they were the other wealth holder. They said, well, we want to make sure it's this way. So they went back and forth and back and forth. Finally, there was an agreement called, and it was known as the Great Compromise of 1850, prevented the Civil War of 1850, because clearly the South was about to split then. They had postponed it, had delayed it. But then California became a state by way of a bill, which is the only time a state's ever had that done. We are trying to do it twice in New California, that process. But let me explain to you briefly the process. Statehood happens, it's really a lot like sausage making. But there's a guideline in the Constitution, Article 4, Section 3, that says if you want to form a state from a pre-existing state, then you have to go to the legislature of that state or other states, if you're going to pull from other states, concerned, negotiate with them, and then go on to Congress, get their permission to go on to Congress. The president is irrelevant in the process. The governors are irrelevant in the process. The judiciary is irrelevant in the process. People say, Paul, we're going to sue you. Go ahead. Go right ahead. Sue us. Just sue me. We're going to stop your process. Go right ahead. Do a lawsuit. It's not, the courts just throw them right out. Tim Draper tried to do the same thing with a three-state solution with us. He was following us, and we said we're going to declare independence on January 15, 2018. And guess what he did? He pulled papers for the three-state solution at the same time. So he was spinning off of our buzz. He got signatures for the new state within a week and a half. His new state solution. That's unheard of. And that's because we declared independence, and we had 3 million hits on our website in 2 days. So we know about this. We know the power of what we're dealing with. And you know what? Because he wanted to turn it into a vote in a proposition, it got caught up in the courts. And some guy from around here was suing Tim Draper and that whole thing, the whole state process, because of some possible interference environmentally with the fairy shrimp found in Central Valley. You guys have fairy shrimps around here? Anyway, so what happened? It went to court. It went to court, and they threw it out. And then why did they throw it out? It was unconstitutional. It had never gone to the executive branch for a vote.
Next one.
It's fairies and shrimp.
Fairies and shrimp.
I don't even know, this is on, okay. Paul, you know, it talks about needing the approval of the legislature, and we know we have a one-party monolithic legislature in Sacramento right now. Congress can be Congress, but I'm sure other pressures can be brought to bear. I agree with you that we're promised a Republican form of government. We have standing and legs to stand on. But how do we get this through and passed and involved with the California legislature as it stands right now? That to me would just seem to be a huge obstacle and roadblock, but I'm all ears.
Okay, well, we're doing what the West Virginians did. Okay. We have declared that the California legislature is non-functional. We have declared that the California legislature and also the governor and also the judiciary are all in constitutional default, which makes them null and void. And so what we've done is what they did in West Virginia. Rather than sit down and try and negotiate with these people, what we did is we reorganized a reorganized California government. In other words, a shadow government, you would think. But it's not. It's constitutional. It was done by the West Virginians when Virginia left, when they left the Union.
So will there be some necessary vote on the part of the current government, or they're just
No.
out of the picture?
They're done.
Then you go straight
Listen,
to Congress? Or?
Yeah, that's why we're straight in Congress right now. That's why we're up there, because we've already done that, and that's what we the people think. That's why I say, tell me where there's another we the people movement like this in the United States. Tell me. There's none. And so we hold that ground, and you know, people are getting it. The people who understand the history of this are going, huh, this is like dangerous, because you could do that in Oregon, couldn't you? Yes, we can.
So does a vote required in Congress, or you use?
There's a vote required in Congress, and there
will
will.
Congress write a bill then, like before, or?
Yeah,
Is there a bill? Is there a bill already in Congress? Is that
no, we're not at that point yet.
not?
So where you're at right now is we in January declared the default notice that we needed to declare for California, and we reorganized. That was in December. We reorganized a new government called the Reorganized Government of California. We have a governor, we have a lieutenant governor, we have a secretary of state, we have an attorney general, and we have a set of 7 members and a set of senators, exactly like they did in West Virginia. It's identical. And what happened in West Virginia, because of the Civil War, it's a very quick story, so we'll get to it. But what happened is that the Civil War came along in 1861, and West Virginians wanted no part of slavery in Virginia. And Virginia wanted to secede from the Union to have slavery and preserve it and join the Confederacy. And so when they did that, the West Virginians, who were supposed to meet with the Virginians, right, were supposed to negotiate with them, they couldn't because they were gone. They had renounced their citizenship, they had renounced their government completely, so they had nobody to turn to. So they went to Congress, and Congress said, well, we understand your pain, but you've got to satisfy Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution first. And so they didn't know what to do. The first time this ever happened. So they talked about it, and Francis Pierpont, who was an attorney at the time, said, well, we'll just reorganize and reform and restore the Virginia government for ourselves. And they did. And they took it to Congress, and Congress said, no, don't do that. And so they said, well, we'll go to the man who we hate the most to see if he can help me out, Abraham Lincoln. But they didn't like Abraham Lincoln. And they went to him, and he went to the Congress, and the Congress said yes. So they followed the procedure, just like we followed the procedure with our restored government and our new government, the New California. Passed the resolutions, and we moved the paperwork. We moved the paperwork off of Kevin McCarthy.
So you're saying the vote of Congress is part of it, but the president doesn't need to, no veto power here. Vote of Congress is the vote of Congress.
Now there's one other place where the legislature has such power. It's called voting. Isn't that right? The legislatures have the right to control voting in your legislature or in your states, just like the Congress does. There's only 2 places where a Congress or the legislature has such power. So we're well along in the process. That's why we're doing the things we need to do to talk to the right people, get ourselves in the right places, the right paperwork in the right places, and that sort of thing. That's been kind of an interesting scenario. We'll talk about that when we can. But it's resonating in the Capitol. The excitement for me is it's resonating. People are listening, and because they're desperate for it. They're desperate for New California. They're desperate for any constitutional answer. Because right now they don't see a constitutional answer. They don't see it.
So in other words, our fate is in the hands of Congress, basically.
No.
We need a bill.
No. Our fate is in the hands of God.
I mean, we need a bill to be passed in Congress to create New California.
No, to authorize New California.
So authorize.
So we're creating already.
So the right nomenclature is to authorize it and recognize it as a 52nd state.
And we have an absolute strategy to do that. And it'd be really impossible for me to explain right now. But we have, and what we're doing at this point in time is on course. And it is absolutely exciting.
So, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to interrupt just for a minute. I know Courtney has been a wonderful waitress for us tonight, and she's so the kitchen's here too. I want to say thank you to you guys, and I hope everyone here tips generously for all of your hard work tonight. So, all right, back to questions.
Okay, so I've been part of a network of people around the country loosely structured that use creative legal process to get things accomplished in the courts that you wouldn't believe, that they're really amazing sometimes. Some people around the country have done legal research, or had more research in Delaware, and found out their state was a corporation domiciled in Delaware.
Right.
I have reason to believe that California is a Delaware corporation domiciled in Delaware, and they became a corporation in 1881. I haven't had time. I haven't been able to travel back there.
1879.
Well, I think it took them until 1881. I could be wrong about that, but somewhere in that time period. Anyway, some people had sued their state in Delaware to get their corporation tossed out, get their charter thrown out, so they could accomplish some other agendas. That might be a strategy you would want to employ. I don't know.
Well, we're well over that one.
Okay.
We've recognized, and that's part of the problem. And that's part of the, remember I started off talking about how they wanted to destroy us from the get-go? That's part of the problem. Because California, and California is a great example. You're going to learn about quickly here, as quick as I can go, you're going to learn about the difference between a constitution and a corporation. All right, so we understand. In Congress only recognizes a constitution for statehood. It does not recognize a corporation. Every single state in this union has come in under a constitution.
Hallelujah.
Every one. Not the corporate thing of 1861 moving on, and there's interpretations of that, and that led to things going on in some states adopting new constitutions like California did in 1879, 71, whatever. It's a completely different constitution. It's a corporate constitution. And a corporate constitution is designed to have employees and conduct business activity. It's not designed to govern people. A constitution governs people. Now, there's another caveat to this that needs to be understood. And that is the idea that we have a compact with the union. That every state is in agreement by their constitution with the Union of States. Everyone has it, and it's called a compact. And a compact is an indelible, endurable, perpetual agreement. And this is why it tells you we the people are more powerful. And it's real simple. Because we were brought in as a state under a compact, the state of California is going to remain in perpetuity a member of the United States. Doesn't matter if Gavin Newsom's here, you're here as the governor, I'm here, doesn't matter. But the governments may come for light and may disappear for light and transient reasons, right? Just like it said in the Declaration of Independence, same thing. They all understood that. A government inside of a state can not be what is required to be a state. And that is Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. There's three things that are elemental in being a state and recognized as a compact state and being recognized by the Congress. The first thing you're going to read in our papers that we're going to submit, I can't tell you what they are, the first thing you're going to read is a paragraph, very first line of the paragraph. and it says, and this would be the line that Congress is going to use, that New California has a Republican form of government. First line. First line, it's on every single constitution written. A Republican form of government, representative form of government. That's what Benjamin Franklin and the Connecticut Compromise in the 1787 Constitutional Convention came up with. That was the miracle to determine whether it's going to be a democracy or it's going to be a republic. And a democracy is a dictatorship. We use that word all the time, though, don't we? And that's because the left wants us to use that word. Because you vote? No, it's not because you vote. What about the minority people who don't get a vote in a democracy? A democracy leads to what we have today, a dictatorship. It always does in history. The founding fathers never included in the Constitution one time any of the words. I don't even think it might come up in a couple places in the Federalist Papers, but that's as example as what not to be. They wanted a Republican form of government. And of course, what happened at the very end of the last day of the Constitutional Convention is Benjamin Franklin was walking out the door, and then Mrs. Johnson said, Dr. Franklin, what have you created? Have you given us a republic, a monarchy, or a republic? And his comment was, a republic if you can keep it. Now, have we kept the republic? No. You see why we're here now? That's why we're here. We're reclaiming the republic. And we proclaim in our documents that we are offering a Republican form of government. We will keep you free from invasion, and we will keep you free from domestic violence. These people coming into our country will be gone. First order of business. If you don't think law enforcement in this state doesn't want that to happen, then you haven't talked to sheriffs lately, heart to heart, one-to-one. Any sheriffs did? Deputy volunteers?
I'm bringing one next time.
I bet you are. That was another conversation I had on the way in. I had about 10 conversations. It was a great drive. It was beautiful out, everybody.
You have a question?
There's somebody that had that. Wait for the microphone.
Not knowing all the history, I know that there's one big difference between now and Virginia. Because Virginia seceded. They left, technically maybe they weren't, because that's the Civil War's technically about. But California hasn't done that. So it is a little different than West Virginia. And how are you going to make that, understandable perhaps?
Well, our statement is California has done that. They have left the Union already.
But they didn't do it in declaration. Virginia did. So it is a difference in how it's going to be perceived.
That's why we went through the default processing and informing, and through our grievances, we have declared them as we the people. And we couldn't do this, what you're saying, we could not do this now had we started this in January of 2018, we declared our independence. People were thinking, okay, we're a great state now. I said, no. We're years away. There's a process. And we've got to show that we have constitutional standing. We've got to do all these things. We have to travel this road. This is the road that we're on, and this is the road that God wants us to be on, that the founding fathers have designed for us. I mean, people don't understand this because this has not been a well-traveled road since 1959, when you had Alaska and you had Hawaii come in as territories, different process, that this road has not been traveled at all since 1861. And that's why we're here. And listen, bring on the Supreme Court hearings or whatever, it's already been done and adjudicated through the system. We are following that position. We have laid the groundwork, we made proclamations, and I can tell you, I have talked to some very interesting people, and they're just shaking their heads, I can't believe you did this. I said, well, isn't this what we're supposed to do as we the people? Aren't we supposed to take charge of our own destiny? We the people. It's our right and responsibility and our duty, correct? That's where we have to be emboldened. I don't want to do this anymore. Please make it like it was 10 years ago. I had and then go, wait a minute. you don't stop and stand up now and get rid of that attitude, and stand up for your rights, then I got a whole lot of boxcars that you're going to be seeing that are red. Which I find interesting. I was in East Germany in 1992 and they still have those frickin' red boxcars along the tracks. I can remember it to this day. They never went away.
Will this ever go to the California voters?
The Constitution will go to the California voters. It will. I would love to have this go to the voters and do all kinds of things and show these people and just rub it in their faces. Because we work very closely with the whole voting system. We know where the fraud is. This is a completely corrupt voting system, guys. Come on. You know, and there's some stuff coming out that's you're just gonna go, oh my God. But the truth has to come out. We have to see what has happened to us in order to understand it. But we want to do that. I believe in a Republican form of government where everybody has the vote. But you know, as long as we have a corrupted system, I just want to give you this little quick demonstration. I know we're pressed for time, but you know, apparently when you guys vote, we're not pressed for time. We have 29 days to take our ballots that are mailed to us in the mail. And then they have a day to vote, an election they call it, and then they have 27 days after that to count the votes. And they use computers, and that's, guess what? That's a speedy system to do it, right? That's right. Okay, that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yes, it is.
Excuse me. Okay, I did this on my radio show the other day, because I kind of lost it. Some of you probably realize I kind of lost it. Because I'm so sick of this argument that we're hearing from the left. Oh, we gotta have this, we got. And I listen, I've talked to county clerk reporters, I've talked to their attorneys, and I tell them we're full of BS, and they go, yeah, we are, it's pretty good BS, right? I said, it's working right now, but not for long. Okay, this ballot, I sat there in my studio, and I'm looking at the audience, that guy's wearing a shirt, and I'm going, I'm making a ballot. Okay, here's a ballot. Here's my ballot. All right, but you are the election official. I walk in. This is how simple this is. How many of you remember vote one day voting?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in it. That wasn't that long ago either, was it? I'm going to come in here. This is what we're proposing. Okay, here's my ID. Can I give my ballot, please? Oh, awesome. Okay, here. Thank you. And Donald J. Trump. I'm going to vote for him. Recall. I'm going to vote twice. You never be with the you know, I'll vote twice. And do I want Ryan Dahl to win over Gavin Newsom?
Oh yeah.
You bet. Okay, so here, thank you very much, and make sure that gets to the ballot box. Thank you. There goes 29 days and 27 days plus 1. Is that simple or what? That's it. You just saw one-day voting. You saw 2-minute voting. And I made the ballot myself. I got to vote for whoever I wanted to vote for, right? It didn't go through a machine. It shouldn't go through a machine. It fractionates the votes. They use algorithms. They spin the algorithms. And what they do is they make everything distorted. Donald J. Trump won California. Listen to this number. We did the algorithms, Dr. I don't want to say doctor. No, not Dr. Frank. No. Dr. Shiva's way. Dr. Frank got it from us. Let's be clear. Dr. Frank got the numbers from us, but what we did is we ran the algorithm by way of Dr. Shiva. On November 20th, we had the exact number by which Donald Trump won California. 15,800,000. 15,800,000 to Joe Biden's 4,600,000.
Wow.
That's who won. That's why Donald Trump, if you listen to him just the other day, he actually said he won California. You know how long it's taken us to get him to say that? I'm going to write a book about it. I bet you will. Sales will go on tomorrow. But
Red tsunami.
yeah, listen, the whole thing all throughout the state was Brian Dolly. He should be called God.
Yeah.
Listen, Newsom, we think won one county. One county. No.
Is recall?
Not even say he didn't win San Francisco. He did not win San Francisco. Well, he was crushed in the recall. It should have been Larry Elder.
Yes.
Now, all these numbers are not making sense. That's why they're running scared of what we're doing in the New California movement. These guys are so afraid of us showing up at their front door with these declarations with all the numbers on them, and the truth comes out. Tommy Hong in San Luis Obispo, he was the first one that we took on. We showed him with his declarations the exact numbers on the algorithm, and you know what? In 3 days he resigned. He said, I am out of here. Oh, I got another job down in Contra Costa County. Really? That was pretty close. But wait a minute, Tommy, you're giving up an elected job and about $60,000, $70,000 and all your benefits to go take some grunt work over there in Contra Costa. But that, we understand that, well, that's why you wanted to leave so quick. Right?
Serve the people.
And then there's the corruption that goes along with the cartels. It's all coming out, guys.
Yep.
I can tell you tonight. And it's all going to come out. It's all going to come out from you, the people. And this movement that we've created here, and putting pressure on the system, these simple little affidavits. People they don't take them serious. They find themselves in trouble as elected officials. But I can tell you that almost all of them are in on the deal. That, that hurts me because I have friends that have lied to me for 15, 20 years. And that hurts. They have committed treason. And that's what it comes down to.
Treason.
Okay, are we done?
Same here. Yes.
Oh, wait, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
First of all, we did you a new California shirt, but we're sure you have to. So instead, we're going to give you some skin.
A box of chocolates.